type of large-scale retail business. This isn't the case. It's more aptly called a cap, a 5100 cap, on our planning board. Our planning board, which I was a part of for 4 years, has the restrictions it has to follow. If you open the opportunities to a developer up to come in with a PUD, which comes to the town board, plan unit development, there's more lateral movement available through the town board to forgive aspects of the zoning, to entertain negotiations that we might bring things from the developer that will aid the town. So, you know, this whole discussion is kind of moot since it's not a hard, fast cap on development, especially commercial development in general, solely large-scale retail that the planning board can handle unilaterally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaGrange. Mr. Stanton.
Of course, this is the big issue in town. As I said, I'm very pro-business, but I am not pro-big box. The 50,000 square feet is far too restrictive. And it's not just the 50,000, but all the things that were attached to that 50,000 the initial law that came out. We have a very small business next to Town Hall, farm stand. We sell our farm products there. The part of the 50,000 cap law that they proposed would have prevented my family, my sons, from expanding that business. There was a 3,000 square foot outdoor display area cap. We already exceed that. I mean, you're talking about a small business. You're talking about really capping more than just the big box when you go that far. I was very anxious and very happy to see the compromise that Rich Riley brought up. It was 85,000 square feet. That goes right underneath the 90,000 square feet definition of a big box. Still leaves some room for a Tractor Supply, Bed Bath & Beyond. There's a lot of stores that just are right between that 50,000 and 85,000 that are not a big box. So I think that would be the best way, and a PUD is not a good way around it. You talk to anybody who hears about a PUD backs away because it's more red tape, more hoops you have to jump through. It's a huge process, adds years to a project. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanton. Mr. McKay.
Well, it's clear that New Scotland is attractive to developers because within the last 2 years, obviously, a developer from Casanova, New York, has come to our town with an initial proposal for 750,000 square feet of retail. It would have been the 4th largest mall in the region. What is the impact of that on us? I think on the surface it sounds like that might be attractive in terms of tax base and tax revenue for the town. But what research has shown, research that the expertise in this community has committed to and has contributed to, is that when you get over 100,000 square feet of retail development in this town, you start incurring costs on the back end. The county sheriff has told us that he would need to add officers and payroll to county sheriff operations. Those are charges that this town does not currently face and would soon be charged to us if development too big comes into town. The 100,000 size cap has gone through some public comment, has gone through some public test. I think all of us welcomed the input from local business owners to say this is what needs to be fixed for this to work for us. And I think there was a clear commitment from Doug LaGrange and Tom Dolan to fix it. But the 5100 actually represents a bit of a compromise in and of itself. There are folks who in this very room within the past 2 years have called for preservation of the Bender Melon Farm as open space. There are folks who have called for a retail size cap of 30,000 square feet. 5,100 is a very defensible number. It is what is right for our community in terms of tax base. It is what fits with our community in terms of the comprehensive plan language. and it is really where our thinking should be directed.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKay. Mr. Robinson?
I think, first of all, I think I agree with Dan. I don't think anybody in the community wanted a 750,000 square foot plaza. I can't imagine it in our town. For me, it was always about the 50,000 square foot cap. As you all know, I was the chairman of the CSAC committee, and from day one, I did say that I'm not a big fan of caps because I think numbers are often picked arbitrarily, but would have been happy for a compromise. I don't really agree that 50 is a compromise. That was the number that began this, and it's never changed since. If you look at our current zoning law, section 190-43, there are 14 criteria for development. 14, including infrastructure, roadways, building design, vehicular and pedestrian traffic patterns, design, height of buildings, scale of buildings, and scale for the rest of the community, adequate screening, landscaping, clustering of buildings to preserve green space. Existing landscape should be preserved in its natural state as much as possible. Open space sufficient to meet the needs of the users. Approvals of all other government entities. Environmental, the SECR Act, environmental reviews, stormwater management reviews. So, although I do agree there needs to be some changes in our zoning law, and we're talking about them now in town with the wind turbines and those kinds of things, and although I have said all along I'd be willing to compromise with a cap, I just think 50 is too small. To say that our town does not have any zoning in place and it is wide open is just technically inaccurate. There's a reason our town has not been overrun with development in many years. A lot of that has to do with topography. The beautiful picture on the card that was mailed out of the escarpment doesn't show any of our commercial district. That will never change. It's got bedrock. The small commercial district we do have needs some commercial development, and not just for tax base, but for shopping and for jobs for our children. Do we need to amend the zoning law? I think we do in some places, but I don't think a 50,000 square foot cap is the cure-all for the zoning laws of our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. This question is for Mr. Stanton. Combination of two questions. What is your opinion of property rights as it relates to property development in New Scotland? And how do you respond to those who do not like zoning or other restrictions on their use of commercial or residential private property?
The great paradox. That's what that is. You want people to have property rights, but you can't go too far. Obviously, you can't go too far. And, I'm a large landowner. My family's been large landowners for generations. Property rights is a very, very important thing for us. I mean, this country was built on property rights. That's not to say that there can't be some regulations. Obviously, you can't just have a free-for-all, but the less regulations you can have, the better, I think. So we really have to compromise and have rules within reason that don't penalize the people that have kept our land rural for generations. Most of the large open land that people see and love around these towns are owned by older people. And they've been passed down to the family. Very few of them are still farming, but they kept it open because they like open land. They've oftentimes struggled to keep this land for everybody to look at. And for somebody to put restrictions and say, you can, if you need to sell some of this land, you can only do this, after they've been keeping it as good stewards throughout generations, is really unfair. But like I said, there does need to be regulations, but we have to be careful how much we regulate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanton. Mr. McKay.
It is the key issue here in town, the balance between property rights and zoning. And I agree with Tim that this town, this entire community owes a significant debt to property owners who have kept their land open, who have preserved the rural landscape that I think we all so appreciate in this town. Now, the commercial zone is zoned appropriately for commercial development.